Hey everybody, welcome to the Good Evening Kitties podcast, a Tales from the Crypt review. My name is Melissa, your ghostess with the mostess, and today's episode is Season 3, Episode 1, Loved to Death. Today I have a special guest with me, Matt Kelly from the Horror Movie Night podcast. Hey Matt.
Hey, how you doing, Melissa?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for being on here.
Not a problem. I want to clear up something real quick from last week's episode, though. I was listening to you guys talk about the Tales from the Crypt movie.
Oh, yeah.
And your guest said that Creepshow was, without a doubt, the best anthology film. You mentioned Trick or Treat. I'd like to throw Tales from the Hood in there as another option. Very Tales from the Crypt-y, actually.
Yep, that's a good one, too. That's the one with the painting, right? With the little...
Yes.
Yeah, that one's really good, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll put that in there, too. That's in the top one. So you're here for an important reason. You have a charity event coming up. Can you tell us a little more about that?
So the Horror Movie Night podcast is about to celebrate 150 episodes and 3 years of existence. And we've been trying to do a special community event every year when we celebrate our 1 year. And we try to tie it to a charity. So this year we're going to be doing a 12-hour Twitch stream where we're going to be watching a bunch of different movies live on Twitch. People can log in. They can watch us watching the movies. They can join in the chat box. We'll respond to questions. We'll kind of just be hanging out for 12 straight hours. But we're also going to be collecting donations for Planned Parenthood. So it's going to be this really cool event. I think people will really love it. The event's going to be on Saturday, June 23rd at twitch.tv/Geekscape TV. And that's starting at noon Eastern Standard Time. So come hang out. We'll be doing it from noon till actually technically 2 in the morning. So it's about 14 hours, not 12. But whatever. Come hang out. Enjoy a bunch of great movies. We're going to be watching Elvira, Beetlejuice, The Faculty, Final Destination, and a couple other films.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of those are some of my favorite movies to watch. But yeah, that's awesome. And congrats on the 150 episodes.
Yeah, it's been a long road there. I've been podcasting since 2004. So
wow.
This is the longest running show I've ever been a part of. So it's very exciting.
Awesome. Do you have to watch it off of Twitch?
So we'll see if we get shut down for it. But we'll have the movies playing in a very tiny box in the corner so you can kind of see what we're watching.
Okay.
But it'll have our logo. It'll have enough stuff that hopefully it will not get too bad with copyright stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to do it last year successfully. So hopefully that continues, just kind of keeping it mostly buried under logos and a bunch of other stuff.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, I'll definitely be checking that out. That sounds awesome. So, what is your history with the Tales from the Crypt TV series?
So I actually remember watching Tales from the Crypt Keeper as a kid on Saturday mornings, the Saturday morning cartoon series. Mm-hmm. And the final episode of Tales from the Crypt, my parents let me watch because it was also animated. It was it's called The Third Pig.
Yeah.
And it's a weird retelling of The Three Little Pigs with Bobcat Goldthwait as the voice of the wolf.
I love that. Were they just like, oh, it's animated, so it's for kids.
They were just like, oh, he'll be fine. And I was okay with that. But then I never really watched Tales from the Crypt again until maybe college. Mm-hmm. Sci-Fi Network was doing a marathon of Tales from the Crypt episodes, kind of like how they used to do the Twilight Zone. And I actually watched an episode that you're going to be discussing probably in a month called Abracadaver. Mm-hmm. And it freaked me out so bad that once the DVD set started coming out, I would pay attention to DVD releases.com or whatever the websites were at the time. And I'd be like, oh, Tales from the Crypt comes out on Tuesday. And I would just go out, buy it, and then binge watch it that night. And I became really, really obsessed with Tales from the Crypt. So when you had first, I forget where I saw you posting about this, or maybe you had contacted me, but when I heard that there was a Tales from the Crypt podcast, I was just upset I didn't come up with it because it's such a great idea. So
thanks.
It's really great to be able to revisit these things.
Now, you said, so even though Abracadaver scared you half to death, you still were interested.
Yeah, because at that point I was a pretty hardcore horror fan. Okay. And I remembered Tales from the Crypt being more goofy than anything, mm-hmm. but the ending of that episode just unsettled me to no end. This season actually has 2 or 3 episodes that I think have some really legitimately unsettling endings. Top Billing, I remember also having a really, really dark closing shot. But yeah, this is season 3. I love season 2. I want if I could have been on any episode of this show, I would have wanted to be on that television terror. I love that episode for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah, that one stands out for a lot of
it's
people.
yeah, I think it's just because I mean, they kind of remade it into a movie recently. The was it WNUF Halloween special? If you've ever seen that movie, is a small indie film, and the concept is that you're watching someone's VHS tape that they taped off of TV, where their local news station was doing a special on a haunted house in the town, and the whole VHS tape, like, it keeps like fast forwarding through commercials throughout the movie, and like it's really well put together. It's a very cool nostalgic thing, but it's literally schlock news reporter goes into haunted house and terrible things happen.
I'll have to check that out.
It's a fun little movie. It only came out maybe like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, so it's a little newer. It's newer then. All right, cool. That sounds awesome. Well, let's get into season 1, episode 1, Love to Death. As always, John Kassir does the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and Danny Elfman does the theme song. This episode was directed by Tom Mankiewicz. He also directed TV's Heart to Heart and the movie Dragnet. The screenplay was by Joe Minion and John Mankiewicz. It stars Andrew McCarthy from movies like Pretty in Pink and Weekend at Bernie's. It stars Mariel Hemingway from movies like Little Men and Sunset, and David Hemmings from movies like Gladiator and The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
And
go ahead.
Let's not forget the other neighbor from Gremlins 2, Hocus Pocus, and the Naked Gun movies in a very small role.
Yeah, that too. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read the information here on Love to Death on the back of the DVD box here. It originally aired June 15th, 1991, and then here's the info for it. Now try to get rid of her. A wannabe writer gives the woman of his dreams a powerful love potion. And that always goes well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. So it starts out with the Crypt Keeper, and he's pretending to be Cupid, kinda. He's got a little heart on in his little robes, and he's shooting at a cherub on the wall, and when he hits it in the heart, it starts to bleed, which is kind of creepy. Yeah, so he opens up the book, and they have the EC Comics cover that they drew for it. And this episode, I hope you enjoy just how, I'm going to put this in quotations, sexy this episode was. It was
the word that kept popping up in my notes was sleaze.
Yeah.
It is like one of the sleaziest Tales from the Crypt episodes.
I don't remember it being this much since, I think, season 1, episode 1, they had a strip club scene that was actually
yeah. It's really over the top, and there's no actual nudity. It's all like suggested, but it's almost more uncomfortable.
Well, there's a brief nudity in coming up, but it's very brief.
Yeah.
But so this episode starts out, and they're in like this kitchen. This whole scene in the first 2 minutes is very 80s and 90s stuff.
It's like almost. My note was like, this couple's too perfect. It's almost gross. and then it takes its dramatic twist, but like. At first, because I did not remember this episode. It's like I'm watching it, I'm like, is this who we're with for this whole episode? Like, when it was the very like perfect Leave It to Beaver 50s family type thing.
Yeah, it was almost too much. Where I was like, oh no. But yeah, so the guy comes home and it's his perfect house. He's got a dog. He brings flowers to his lovely wife, and Mariel Hemingway. I don't know. The blonde is not working for me. She looks too fake, but. Right here, like, they shoot to the table, and it's a box of Life cereal and, like, World's Greatest Husband glass, and he's making a martini. And I don't know, no woman is like this. It's just not how it is. Like, she has been cleaning, and she's in her, just like a cute little house dress with an apron, making him his favorite food. And in this situation, he gets a raise, and she's so excited. And apparently that gets her going right there.
Yeah, she slams the martini against the wall and is like, right now.
Yeah.
And rips off her clothes. And my note says, that's that Tales from the Crypt sleaze I expect.
Yeah, and she's got this crazy,
over the top
bustier lingerie on right away underneath her outfit. She's just been wearing it all day long.
Just waiting in case he got the raise.
Yeah, if not, she was just not gonna.
If he didn't.
Yeah, if not, she was just gonna be like, oh well. So, like, she starts ripping off all his clothes and throws him onto the table with all the, like, powder that he was breading chicken in. And the best part here is, like, she gets down and, like, unbuckles his pants. And then she, like, bites her finger, like, oh my god, is that male genitalia?
Yeah, she's never seen it before. They're married.
Yeah, I
It's a
know.
brand new experience.
And she's so like she can't believe it, and I'm like, okay, this has got to be a dream because there's no
Yeah,
way. And then that's when
that's
it
pretty much
cuts.
where I was like, okay. Now, actually, here's something that's interesting,
Hmm.
and it's a little bit of a spoiler for later on.
That's fine.
But when I was watching the episode, like I said at the start, I was like, oh, this is the world that we're in for the whole episode, because I really didn't remember this one. So when she took the sip of the brandy or the martini and threw it against the wall, my thought was like, oh, he poisoned the drink.
Oh.
And then later on, like there is a poison drink, like later on in the episode.
There's also like I was also thinking there's tons of broken glass everywhere, but that's fine. Let's just stand on the glass. But yeah, so then it cuts to really he's writing this character Louise in this kind of tawdry romance kind of thing. And that's what he's been dreaming about is this thing he's been writing. And
It just seems like a bad movie. Like it seems like whatever he's writing is not that good.
Or that it was going to slowly drift into some sort of porn or something like.
It would have made more sense if he was writing like a trashy romance novel.
Yeah.
Because like I'm watching, I'm like, what movie? Like who would enjoy this movie that he's convinced is like gonna make a big name for himself?
Yeah, and he kind of like lives in this cruddy apartment building, and so he's heading down to go do his laundry. Yeah, he runs into this older lady here. I liked her. I've seen her in other movies too.
Yes, she's the one I mentioned that she's in Gremlins 2.
That's right.
Yeah, she's the woman who's getting drunk on sherry while hosting a cooking show.
And then the little gremlin comes out with the noodles all over him. Yeah. Oh, that movie's so good. I gotta watch it again.
She's the teacher in Hocus Pocus. She apparently, I was looking at her Wikipedia page because she looked familiar to me.
Mm-hmm.
She was a huge actress in the 50s and appeared in a ton of like really important movies in the 50s. And then somewhere in the late 90s, like late 80s, early 90s, kind of just started doing a lot of like schlocky stuff. She was in Naked Gun 3. Like she was in just a lot of really weird schlock stuff after her like heyday in the 50s.
Yeah, I guess maybe that has to do with age or something. I don't know. Could be.
Probably. But yeah, she's great. She's
I love her. And yeah, so he's bringing his laundry down and she runs into him and she kind of notices he wears boxer shorts and she's basically saying that ain't going to get you any play.
Oh, honey. Boxer shorts in this town will get you exactly nowhere. Please tell Mrs. Parker you're not one of those stupid actor types.
No, I'm a screenwriter.
Oh, my third husband was a screenwriter. You working for a big studio?
If you wear those, she's like, come on, I know what ladies like. I think she just kind of spies on everyone in the apartment, lives off the drama.
Yeah, because there's definitely a part where she's listening to them have sex later on in the episode and like smiles about it. Like she's like, oh, finally they got together.
Yeah, she's like, good for them.
Yeah.
But he's down here in this basement where they're doing laundry, just kind of creeping on Miranda, and she's on the phone, Mariel Hemingway's character, doing her laundry and talking about, I think it seemed to me like she used to be in some trashier movies. She's an actress herself, and she's trying to maybe do better and get in some better films.
Like she was in something called like Sleaze Beach Bimbo or something like that.
Yeah, so she's trying to get a little better, but he's picturing her as the woman he's writing in his book with the blonde hair, because in real life she has the dark hair like she normally does in real life.
It's weird. This episode's kind of weird because with the exception of the one neighbor who has a very small role, none of these characters are likable. Like I don't like him because he's an idiot, like he's an obsessive idiot.
Yeah.
And like I don't like her because she's kind of a bitch through a lot of this episode.
Yeah. Well, and she in the beginning though she tried to be nice, like about saying about getting the drink and stuff, but then I mean she ended up, I don't know, he was a little stalkerish.
Both of them are in the wrong. Like the way that she's talking to her agent when we first meet her, I'm like, what would you see? Like I can't imagine myself in any situation, even if I thought that girl was the hottest girl I've ever met. If I'm just listening to her scream and belittle her agent, I'm immediately turned off. Like I'm like, oh, you know what? Nah, I'm not into it.
You're like, never mind, I'll find someone else. I mean, there's gotta be other women around. Yeah. Like, leave your apartment. They're everywhere. So this part down here in the basement is where we get the brief nudity. She goes to take her shirts off to put it in the wash, and she takes her bra off, and you kind of get a little like tasteful side boob.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah. And then that's when he's like, oh my gosh. And then she immediately like puts her shirt back on because she hears him run off. But she doesn't seem too worried about it. She's just like, oh, I'll just put my shirt back on. So she's still yelling at her manager in between this. And she heads back upstairs into her apartment. And then you got this landlord.
I love the landlord in the start. Once after he becomes like the villain of the episode, I don't like him so much. But there's the scene where, so the way it works out is that the main character says, "Hey, my sink is broken," and he says, "I already know about it." The guy goes downstairs and he comes back up, and the landlord kicks on the intercom real quick and goes, "I fixed that sink for you." And the guy's like, "Oh, thanks." And then he just goes, "Rent's due tomorrow."
Yeah.
like,
It's like,
it's so matter of
did
fact.
he hire someone to do it, or does he actually leave the apartment? Because it seems to me like he doesn't. Or if he does, he's real quick.
So part of me wonders, so it shows that he's got all of these cameras and all of this stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me almost wonders if he intentionally will turn things off from inside of his, like that he could, like, if we're going to go in a direction that they don't say at all, but I'm just making up off the top of my head, it kind of makes sense. So he needs these souls from these people because he obviously gets something from seeing these women murdered.
Mm-hmm.
So he sees someone who's he sees that this guy has affection for this girl. So he like shuts off the water to create the conversation so that he can eventually push him in that direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, could be. Because, yeah, it does seem like he's kind of got this upper hand where he likes to manipulate the people in the apartment.
Yeah,
complex.
And that's what I mean. Like, it could have just been he flicked the switch and now the sink's fixed.
That's pretty messed up, though. Like, this is just, he just sits in there, like, chain smokes all day long and watches videos? That's of people
just
doing
messes
things?
with people's lives.
It's messed up.
No, the landlord tells him what room she's in.
Yeah.
Like, here's where her apartment is. And he kind of pushes in that direction now, where it's like, go, flirt with her, date her.
Mr. Strong, there is a beautiful girl who lives in this building.
Miranda Singer, 509.
Right.
Happy hunting, kid.
Yeah, and so he heads over there, and again, she's frustrated with something with her with her acting, and is on the phone again, and he kind of just walks into her apartment, and she's like, "What are you doing?" You know, he's just kind of like just looking at her stuff and everything, and trying to make conversation with her, and she yells at him to get out of there, because he tries to find something in common, because they're both from Indiana. And so, and so she yells at him. And then this part I thought was a little redeeming because she kind of comes back out of the apartment and is like, hey, I'm sorry. I got upset, and all this stuff. And like, let's go get a drink or, things like that. She introduces herself, Miranda Singer. His name is Edward Foster. And yeah, he admits he shouldn't be going through her mail, which he was. And so she again is like, you want to come over later for a drink? And for her, it's just kind of like, just come over for a drink. But for him, it's like, this is it,
But then she forgets that much quicker.
Yeah.
Like, he comes downstairs a couple hours later and she's already got some random guy with her. Like, she wasted no time.
Well, but I don't think for her it was considered a date.
No.
But like,
no, but it was still like, and the landlord plays on that though. He goes, she made you wait for 5 hours and didn't care.
True.
And it's like, that's like one of those things where it doesn't matter if it's a date or not. Like if my friend, even if it's a friend of mine that's like, hey, let's go get drinks tonight. And we make plans, and then I sit there for 5 hours and they don't show up.
Yeah.
I'm going to be upset.
Well, and she probably also just said it and completely forgot and didn't even think much of it. Because she immediately gets right back on the phone as soon as she says it, She's just like heading out. It's like she probably, if she was anything like me, she probably didn't even hear his name. I'm not good with that. People introduce themselves and I'm like, oh, great to meet you. 2 minutes later, I'm like, what was their name?
My favorite move is to introduce somebody else to that person when you don't know their name so that they're forced to say it again.
Be like,
this is my friend Melissa. And they have to sit there and be like, hi, Melissa, I'm Gary. And then in your head, you're like, Gary, that's who it was.
Nice. Yeah, so then he gets all dolled up, he's like all dressed up kind of nice and brings flowers and stuff because he thinks it's a date, he's super excited. And so I feel a little bad for him, even though he's creepy, and he's waiting for her outside of the apartment just as she's coming back with her date. And he sees her and she's like, oh, hi. And she asks who the flowers are for. And he's just like, oh, yeah, like, 'cause she completely forgot, she thinks it's for a date that he had. Muriel Hemingway like drags her date in by his tie. So you know what that means.
Yeah.
And he just like throws the flowers on the ground and the guy, the landlord's watching. And so he knows right away the kid's probably going to go come see him. Edward is what he calls him, the kid. Yeah. This guy's so creepy, the landlord. He's just laughing maniacally like in the microphone and smoking cigarette after cigarette.
Yeah, and, I love how creepy he is though. Like he's brilliantly cast in this episode.
Luckily, the next morning, Miranda gets in the elevator with him, and she realizes she made a mistake, that they were supposed to have drinks the other night or whatever, and she completely forgot.
Hey, Edward, Indiana. Ugh, I must be the most insensitive person in the world. Weren't we supposed to have drinks the other night?
So I was like, okay, well, that was nice. At least she realized, you know. And so he just, like, shrugs it off, like, you know how you do, like, oh, it's fine. It wasn't whatever, you know. It's not like I bought flowers. Oh, wait, I did, you know. Kind of thing. Yeah, so then she invites him over for a drink during the day there. And he's over having the drink, and they're talking, and he's starting to do what he really probably shouldn't, is mentioning that he's a script writer, that she'd be perfect for his movie.
Bad idea, especially when the script's not done and your script isn't very good anyway.
Yeah. And then he says he changes the character of Louise to Miranda after her, and I'm just like, oh, you need to stop.
Yep.
And she immediately sees through it. She's like,
You want to go out with me, don't you?
Very much, yes, I do.
Look, you're a really nice guy, and I want to be as honest as possible here. You can't do anything for me, and I can't do anything for you. I'm sure you're going to be rich and famous one day, and on that day we have a date.
you're right when you say, like, she is kind of bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and then, like, she literally, the phone rings and she goes, you can show yourself out now. Like, what? I would be so upset if I was at anyone's house and they're just like, I want to take this phone call. Go ahead and show yourself out. Like, okay, so I'm just like the mailman? Like, who am I in your life at that point?
Well, it's because after the drink, she's on the phone and he kind of, like,
Well, then he,
touches her,
then he
you know?
goes, yeah, no, then it gets inappropriate.
Yeah.
He didn't show himself out at that point.
No, he was just kind of like pretending she was Louise. And I'm like, no, now you're getting delusional. And so she gets really mad and throws him out. And I love it. She calls him a dipshit little Midwest weasel.
You dipshit little Midwest weasel!
I was like, oh, I'm from the Midwest. and so, yeah, so then that's when he goes to talk to the landlord. And the landlord lets him in. And this apartment, I'm sure, probably smells real bad. It's real dingy, and there's pictures of other women, like maybe actresses and stuff, models on his walls.
And the landlord says, I've never met any of them.
Yeah, which is kind of creepy. So, I mean, he's obviously done this stuff before with leading people to quote-unquote love with his potions. Edward goes in there, and, I mean, this place is, like, really dark and creepy. And I guess he was going to just pay his rent. So he's asking Edward, you know, would you like Miranda to be with you and love you and all this stuff? And he's like, well, yeah, of course. He's like, I've been waiting for her my whole life. And then the landlord holds up this cute little bottle that basically looks like heart-shaped nail polish.
It reminded me of a little bottle of hand sanitizer that I have for conventions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's just like this cute little bottle, and immediately he thinks it's drugs or something. He's like, I don't do drugs. And he's like, well, first of all, it's not for you. So he basically goes over to Miranda's apartment and apologizes for how he was and asks if she wants to have a drink. And she is totally
She's having none of it.
I love it. She's like, sure, a drink. And he pours it and she just downs it and is like, okay, bye.
Yeah, you can finish yours later and say that we drank it at the same time. She has the line, she's on the phone with the cops, and it's as the potion takes over. She goes, I have a man here. He won't leave. He won't get out. He won't get out. He won't get out of those pants. It's like...
So this is like in between all that. Right before she drinks it and tells him to get out, it's the poison or the love potion drink. So he throws all of it in there, gives it to her. She's on the phone calling the cops, and she tosses it back real quick. Like, okay, fine, we drank, go, because I'm calling the cops. Yeah. And then that's when she does that line, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to report an intruder. Yes, there's a man in my apartment, and he won't get out. He won't get out. He won't get out. He won't get out of his clothes.
And I'm like,
and then
oh,
it
no.
just turns into like a softcore porn for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, then it's a little intense. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. There's the line where he says, I'm fucked out, which I think is such a good line.
I put that down too. I was like, oh no, now she's obsessed with him and he's fucked out. Too bad.
What do you think, my darling?
What do I think? I think I'm exhausted. To use words I never thought would cross these lips. Miranda, I'm fucked out.
Well, I'm not exhausted. I'm not fucked out. I'll never be with you. The more I do it, the more I want to do it. I'm gonna drain you dry.
This episode's bonkers. Like, this episode is way more insane than I remembered it being. But it feels like, and maybe it was just for me, but it felt like there was so much build up to the point where he puts the love potion in that it almost felt like they didn't know where to go beyond that except to get to the ending real quick. Like,
Yeah.
It seems like everything else happens so fast after that.
Yeah, because right now, like, we're actually at, like, the 19-minute mark, and there's only, like, 28 minutes altogether with the Crypt Keeper intro in this episode. They're like, we got 8 minutes, let's throw it in, you know? Like, yeah, they're basically just, she is insatiable, and it's kind of funny, but you also, like, a little feel bad for him, but then you're kind of like, well, this is what you wanted. You shouldn't have put all the drops in there.
You did this to yourself.
She will not quit. Like, they did it all night, and the next morning she's like, let's go again, and it's not really even love. It's more like a lustful obsession.
Yeah.
Is more what it is. And so he's exhausted, and she won't leave him alone. And he's even trying to get some work done later, a couple days later, and she just sits there in, like, lingerie and watches him.
And, like, she's skipping auditions just to be around him and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's all she cares about. And she just, every word he types, she's like, oh, that's amazing, what a line. And he's like, I literally have typed 3 sentences in the past 4 hours. I need to work. You know, and he's starting to get annoyed. It cuts to some time later in this part of us because he's in bed looking like he's going to have a meltdown. And he's all wrapped up in, like, his clothes, and he's all in a blanket, and he looks like he has the flu. And she's basically, like, wanting to go again, and he's like, I think I'm exhausted. Yeah, that's when he does the I'm fucked out thing.
Which it finally leads to him going to the landlord. And there's that insane moment where the landlord, like, he's like, I'm not going to kill her. And the landlord, like, flicks a switch, and then it just pops up a different camera. And it's her just staring, and Miranda just staring into the camera, screaming for Edward.
Yeah.
It's
like there's no getting away from her.
Even I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh God, I would kill her. Like, I was just like she's so annoying in that shot. She did a fantastic job just being over the top with the, like, Edward.
Yeah, she's really getting into it. And then that's when Edward realizes too, all the women on the walls are dead. And the only way out for these men, like you said, is to kill her. And he's like, no, I won't do it. I have a note here about there's a massive lighter the landlord brings out to light his cigarette, and it's hilarious. Let's see. Yeah, they cut to the camera, and she's screaming at her. She knows exactly where he's at. Yeah, there's the lighter. There's this huge lighter. He has to use both hands to hold it. And I'm like, all right, it's a light like a cigar. I'm like, hey, if you're going to do it right. And so, you know, he gives Edward this green kind of lemon lime colored vial of poison. And he comes back into the room, and she's helping him with his script. Like, she's over there typing, dressed up as Louise from the script. And he looks insane. Yeah. His eyes are just like, his hair's all wild, his eyes are big, and he's just like, hi, sweetie, you know?
Yeah,
like
he's just like humoring her. She's like, I'm working on the script. He's like, that's great. Like, he's
like, fantastic. And so she's like, we have champagne. And he's like, awesome. And so he pours all the poison into a glass for her. But then he goes over, for some reason, I don't know why he would care, to go over and read the script. And he doesn't like it, but he pretends he does. But while he's doing that, she goes to grab the drink and bring it to him. And then she realizes, oh, one of these glasses is smudged. I'll take that one because he's so great. He should get the clean glass. Well, the clean glass has the poison in it. And
it's a real Princess Bride Battle of Wits moment.
Well, it's like, if you're gonna poison someone, watch that glass. You know,
like a hawk.
Don't ever not touch it. So he drinks the whole champagne, you know, and she drinks some of hers, and he immediately knows that he messed up. And his eyes get real big, and he falls back on the He falls back on the bed, and he dies. And
it raises a lot of questions in the last couple. I had so many questions about the last minute of this episode.
Yeah, so he dies, and he's, I guess, you know, in heaven.
Which is questionable out the gate.
Exactly. I thought that. I was like, depends on who you ask. But he's in heaven in a white robe in a white room, and it's all foggy, and so which him I guess I could get the heaven thing because technically he was murdered in a way, I guess. And there's other couples there, and they're all in white robes, and there's stars, and it's, you know, very ethereal. And then all of a sudden, Miranda shows up, but she's like turned around, so you just see the blonde hair, which I don't know why it would be blonde because that was a wig.
Yeah.
But she's got the blonde hair, and she's looking for him. She's like, Edward? He's like, oh my gosh, that's her voice, I know it. And she comes over to him, and then that's when you see her face.
Edward? Edward! Oh, my darling, I found you. When you died, I was so upset I threw myself out the window. Now we'll be together, my love! Forever!
Which again, I would like to believe that you don't carry the scars of your death with you to heaven. Like
that was the thing I thought. I'm like, yeah, like apparently she couldn't stand to be away from him, so she threw herself over the balcony immediately after she died and landed on her face. So her face is like all messed up and scraped up, and they did a good job on it. It's gross.
Yeah.
But it's like, first of all, she wouldn't have the blonde hair. A second, yeah, that should be fixed.
A lot of questions raised in the ending, but yeah, so now he's trapped in heaven with her forever, unless it's there's a Twilight Zone episode, and I can't remember the name of the episode.
I actually have that here in some notes here. It is the same plot as Twilight Zone 1959's episode The Chaser.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the one I'm thinking? Well, I'm thinking about just specifically, it's like a thug who dies, and like all of a sudden everything that he ever wanted happens. So like he goes to the casino and he always wins every single time, and like he goes crazy based on the fact that like there's no surprises left in the world. And he's like, how could this be heaven? And then his buddy, the angel's like, whoever said you were in heaven? That's like his eternal punishment, is that everything is perfect.
So you're saying this could be hell.
Yeah, it could be that Edward's in hell, and his hell is that he's stuck with Miranda for all eternity.
It could be. Because also, I mean, depending, again, on who you ask, if she killed herself, she should maybe not be there. But
a lot of questions.
Yeah, so she is there. She looks all messed up.
Philosophical questions raised by episode 1 of season 3.
So possible it could be hell. Maybe, it could be hell. But yeah, so now they're together forever. Just like the potion was supposed to do anyway, really. And he looks terrified, and he's just like, no. And yeah, they really got that road rash on her face real good.
Yeah, it looks good. It's a good special effect. I won't take that away.
Yeah, there's been
season 3's got some good. Next week's episode has some good special effects. Yeah. I watched that too.
Yeah, they got. I mean, it's some good. They usually have some good stuff. And so then it cuts back to the Crypt Keeper, and he's just kind of summing up the episode and doing all his puns, and
he had sex with a skeleton.
Yeah. Yeah,
and one of my notes. The Crypt Keeper had sex with a skeleton.
Yeah, and so he's sitting there, and she's next into him in bed, the skeleton, and she looks kind of like Louise. She's got the blonde wig and everything, and he's smoking a cigarette, and he's just like,
it is good for you.
Yeah. And her head falls off for the answer, and he's like, all right. Crypt Keeper, you're so punny. And the best Crypt Keeper pun is,
so, was it good for you too? Talk about head over heels.
The little bit of trivia here about the episode. The one thing you were saying, there is a Twilight Zone episode called The Chaser. I'm not sure if it's that one, but apparently it's got the same plot. So I'm going to guess not, just because there was no potion.
I think the one that I was thinking of, the whole episode makes you think that it's in heaven. Like, it's immediately after he dies. So I think it's a different
So that's the
episode
twist,
that we're talking about.
Is at the end when they're like, what makes you think it's heaven? And then they're like, credits.
Rob Sterling just stops out of the corner and is like, he's in hell.
Another thing from IMDb here, it teases the 1958 movie Attack of the 50-Foot Woman when Miranda rages in front of the Hollywood sign picture. Also, Rick Moranis, Judd Nelson, and Martin Short were all considered for the role of Edward Foster.
I feel like I would have had way more sympathy if it was like Rick Moranis for some reason. Because I just always feel sympathy for Rick Moranis in every movie that
Martin Short would have been kind of fun. He would have been fun, like, once he freaked out at the end. Like, it would have been kind of good. The next episode will be Season 3, Episode 2, Carrion Death. And that one's pretty fun. Matt, I'd like to thank you for being on here today. It's been great.
Yeah, I had a blast. If anybody wants to hear more of my voice, go to hmnpodcast.com. So every week, me, my brother, and my friend Scott will sit and watch a bad horror movie. Sometimes they're from the listeners that submit it to us, and other times it's stuff that we decide to subject ourselves to. So it's usually a good time. People seem to like it. I also do, on the side, I am producing a Disney podcast called Disneatos, Disneato, and it is just two of my friends. They drink wine and talk about Disney. I really enjoy doing that one, so hopefully people start listening to it. I think it's a good show.
Awesome.
But Horror Movie Night's the main one.
Okay, and then if you want to mention the charity one more time.
And the charity is going to be on June 23rd. It's going to be on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Geekscape TV at noon on June 23rd. I highly recommend, if you're interested, find the Horror Movie Night Facebook page and join it, because we'll be posting the links to it directly there. It's probably the easiest way to find it.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the Good Evening Kitties podcast. If you need to, or if you want to contact me with anything, you can email me at goodeveningpod@gmail.com. You can also check out the Facebook page for the Good Evening Kitties podcast. There's also a Patreon page. If you want to donate $1, that would be very much appreciated. If you donate $2, you'll get a shout out on the show. Next episode is season 3, episode 2, Carrie Death. And again, thanks for listening.
I just had quite a scare. I actually thought my heart was beating again.
Hello, visitor. I'm Laura.
And I'm Craig.
We're the hosts of the Spectral Asylum podcast.
A creepy little podcast that covers a wide range of creepy and unsettling topics.
From the paranormal to conspiracy theories.
And from mythology to history.
With a little bit of awful humour thrown in.
If you're like us and partial to the darker and creepier side of the world, then join us at Spectral Asylum.
We'll be bringing you bi-weekly episodes to keep you feeling spooky and sufficiently creeped out all year round. Because to us, this kind of stuff isn't just for Halloween.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and most other podcast players.
And if you like us, find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Spectral Asylum.
That's all from us for now. We hope to see you in the asylum.
Enjoy the show.